Can you explain to everybody and myself again what Bitcoin actually is and what it plays a role as a cryptocurrency, or even what the cryptocurrency generally is?
Yeah, so a lot of people ask this question, and the question that I almost ask back is, what do you think money is?
A trade is just a value of wealth that we place on it based on standards, basically.
Yeah. So you have a pretty good definition, but like, what is the U.S. dollar?
Whatever the government says it is at that point
exactly.
in time.
Yeah, this is what you would call fiat currency, and fiat in Latin means "let there be," right? Like, if you read like the Latin Vulgate, which is the Latin version of the Bible, like the Genesis 1:1 would say fiat, lux or something like that. Let there be light, right? Like, let there be. It's something that somebody creates out of nothing. So fiat money is what the U.S. dollar is. It's actually controlled by the Federal Reserve, and this is an institution that has a government mandate, but is not actually a government organization. It's actually owned by a bunch of banks and everything else. They get to print whatever money they want, and they get to do whatever they want. And this is what's called an independent central bank. And they get to issue currency, and most of the time they do it so that they can fund the government. So the government has a budget, right? Like 2.5 trillion or 4 trillion or whatever it is, whatever the number happens to be in that year. And of course, their tax receipts are way less than that, right? Like, if it's 4 trillion for the budget, it's like 2.5 trillion. It's like, okay, where do they get the 1.5 billion? Well, they issue debt, which they call treasury bonds, and the market will sometimes buy a lot of it. But if there's anything left over, if they have 2.5 trillion and 4 trillion, so they have to issue a 1.5 trillion in debt, and say the market buys $500 billion worth of treasury bonds, where do they get the other $1 trillion? They get that from the Federal Reserve. They will print $1 trillion and put the treasury on their balance sheet. So
Jerome Powell
an extra $1 trillion comes into existence. And this is what happens in every country. The IMF makes sure that there's an independent central bank in almost every economy, any emerging economy. This is one of the conditions that they set in order to get loans. So you have this cabal of central bankers that essentially get to control money, right? Yeah. And they get to issue money or whatever. And that is what money is today. Now, if that sounds kind of evil and nefarious and everything, it's because it is. It's horrible, and they take a concerted amount. It takes a concerted amount of effort on the part of the powers that be to keep us ignorant of it. But this is exactly what they do, and I think it was Henry Ford that said, if the people of this country knew how the monetary system worked, there would be riots tomorrow, and for good reason, because there's literally a very small group of people that control the money printing. Now, all right, so that was sort of like an explanation of what the current monetary system is, right? Until you really fully understand that, Bitcoin won't make sense because you don't know what problem it's solving. Essentially, the problem that it's solving is that there's a central group, a small group that gets to control the money. And when they control the printing of money, what they do is they control the entire economy. They can print money whenever they want. They can buy whatever securities they want. They can issue, they can bribe whoever they want. They can do they can more or less, quote unquote, manage the economy, which really means manage people, which is really kind of like a form of financial slavery or whatever. But that's what they get to do. What is Bitcoin? Well, Bitcoin is a money that doesn't have that property, right? Like some central entity that gets to issue things, that gets to control things, and it's got a monetary policy that is fixed in code. No human controls it. It's already, from its inception, it's been the same ever since, and that's the point, right? Like it's not controlled by anybody. And as a result of that, you have this store of value. You have a way to store value that is not under the control of the central bank, of the money printers, of the people in control of the current system. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I mean, the question I would have with that would be, isn't that the system that we had prior to this with gold, essentially?
I hope you enjoyed that little snippet of the Rambling Mind podcast. If you want more of the Rambling Mind podcast, or if you want to listen to the whole episode that you just heard, go check it out on any podcast listening platform, whether that be Anchor, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Breaker, Stitcher. I could go on, but you guys already know which podcast you love to use to listen to. So go check it out. Link down in the description as well. I'm gonna catch y'all later. Peace.